Are watching Fly Nubian Money. Please be sure to sign up for flynubianmoney.com if you would like to build wealth for your family. The first month is free. I'm here with my guest again, Dr. Alicia Watkins. You can follow her on social media at Linktree Dr. Alicia. Dr. Alicia, do you have any other um, social media sites that people can follow you?
I basically use Instagram. So you
Okay.
can find me on Instagram with Coaching with Dr. Alicia on Instagram. I do have a Facebook page, but I typically use that with work and just keeping up with friends and family. But my professional page is my
Okay.
Instagram page.
Okay, great. So let me give a little bit of background on Dr. Alicia. So she is a full-time professor of social work and a licensed clinical therapist. She is also the founder of Coaching with Dr. Alicia LLC as a certified couples coach focusing on providing evidence-based skills to couples who wish to get married, improve their communication skills, and foster healthy relationships. I could have used you, Dr. Alicia, several years ago. All right. So, Dr. Alicia, I understand that you used to work as a therapist at Alliance Counseling and Coaching, but you stepped away. Could you please explain to us why?
Well, yeah, well, I'll just start from the beginning, really.
Okay.
It has always been my dream to be a professor and teaching social work to students and training the next generation of therapists. And it's always been my dream to, in addition to that, to also keep my practice skills sharp. So what was interesting is that once I learned kind of the layout of how it works, you get a PhD, you're hired at a university. And so for many years, although I kept my license current, I was focusing on trying to get tenure and get, promoted to a more stable situation at my university. And I have been able to do that. And so I kept my license current. So I've always stayed on top of what was happening in terms of practice. And I reached out to a private practice after I came back from my Fulbright scholarship at
Oh, nice.
country of
Could you
Guyana.
could you explain Fulbright in case there's some who don't understand, but that's very prestigious.
Yeah, so it's always been my dream to be able to teach at another institution in another country. It was something that I wish I had done early on before I accumulated people, children, and responsibilities. And so the Fulbright organization, they give an opportunity for faculty members to who are skilled in a certain area to go to another country. That country will host you, and then you get to learn from them, and they get to learn from your expertise, and it's just a wonderful cultural exchange. And I have something I've always wanted to do, so I was able to do that with my family. Take my family. We lived
Wow.
in Guyana for 5 months, and I used a lot of my practice skills because I worked with mental health. I worked with women's issues. I also traveled to other places in the Caribbean to have conversations about stigma and mental health. And when I got back, I was hired as a part-time therapist at a private practice. And I just enjoyed, finally, after establishing myself in my institution, I enjoyed getting back into the clinical work. And as you know, my husband is Dr. Boyce, and
Yes.
he's always been in my ear talking about starting my own business. I was totally like, just to think about it, I was overwhelmed by the entire process, because where I have expertise in, my subject area expertise,
Mm.
learning about business and the intricacies of how to start a business, how to form an LLC. What do I do with social media? How do I convey information on on social media to the public in a
Right.
way that's different from what I'm used to at a university setting and even in my clinical work. So it was a big transition. And after a while, I got a little more comfortable and I did a whole bunch of other things, which I'm sure you'll talk to me about. And so once I started my own business and that my business got booming during the pandemic, I was able
Mm,
to terminate my position at the private practice because you soon kind of realize that when you're working for other people, I was helping them make money. Of course, I was getting the experience, but
right.
then it just triggered to me like, wow, I really could do this on my own. I didn't feel confident that I could do it on my own when I first began back into private practice, but I got the confidence eventually, and now I have my own private practice. It is something I've never looked back from, and I'm very happy I took the leap. I took the leap into putting myself in something that was really uncomfortable for me.
Hmm. So I have two-part questions, and they're worlds apart. One, you said you always wanted to be a therapist. You always wanted to help. What was it that, I mean, did you ever think of any other career prior to this, or did you pretty much know? Because some people do. And the second, please talk about how the pandemic pushed you forward.
Yeah, so interesting. Most people don't know this, but I'm the second generation therapist. My mom was a school teacher, but
Hmm.
eventually, at the end of her career, she just became a therapist and a counselor.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
also, my dad is also a social worker too. And
Okay.
so I just grew up in a family environment that kind of cultivated being connected to your feelings. How does that make you feel? My parents had a huge impact on sparking my interest in human behavior and why people do the things that they do. It was always fascinating to me. It was always exciting. When I went to college, and then I saw, like, my dad was a college professor, and I saw how much freedom he had. I saw how much money he made, and he worked at a HBCU. Um,
Hmm.
University. And so it was really nice. I'd go visit him in the summers. And he just seemed to just instill that in me, this love of learning, this interest in mentoring other people and students, and just having an impact on our society in that way. So it's something that it came about naturally. And it's just a fascination of mine. I just reading books and understanding there's always new theories and new ideas and new techniques that's been
Hmm.
fascinating to me. So that part was pretty exciting. During the pandemic, that was your second question.
Yeah.
Tell you, my private practice was very sad to see me go because when I started the private practice, it was just like you just take cases here and there. But when I left, upon leaving for the very first time, we had a wait list. There were people who had depression, anxiety, marriages were falling apart during the pandemic because all of the issues in a marriage that you weren't able to address, that you can avoid during the pandemic when everything shut down. It was just like we
Yeah,
are
it
in
was
this
right
moment
there.
and there is no avoiding it. And so if you're on the fence, this was the moment of clarity for a lot of people. And I would help a lot of couples get through this clarity. And so I did a lot of couples work. I did a lot of work with individuals with depression and anxiety. That those were the very two prominent symptoms people were coming in with. And it just was booming. And then my private practice, my own business just boomed, and it
Uh-huh.
just succeeded in teaching courses and having workbooks out. And so I just dove into that side of myself where I was able to give back in a different way.
Okay, so when you're talking about coaching, I mean, I was looking at your site, you have something called Drama-Free Lifestyle Workbook Bundle.
Yes.
Drama-free. That sounds so nice to me. Could you please let us know about that?
Yeah, it's something that I just thought about. And when I was talking to a lot of my clients and I was asking them, what would you like to have at the end of our work together? How would you like to see your life? And in a nutshell, the goal for everybody I was meeting with was, I want peace in my life. I really don't want to have all of this chaos and this sadness, and I want to feel confident, and I want to feel as if I can get my needs met in my relationships. And, you know, a lot of people were having a lot of drama in their in their households that they needed to come to grips with. And even in the middle of that, the drama free, I also realized that a lot of people in our community were being faced with memories and histories of trauma. And so, in addition, I got my certified trauma professionals certificate in the process of this whole thing, because I figured this is something that I'm coming across all the time. And so I needed to be able to make sure that I was equipped with the best tools to address the population that I was having in my office, my virtual
Right.
office.
So am
Yeah.
I hearing correctly? The pandemic and you boomed rather during the pandemic because people kind of had the time to stop and look at
Mhm.
themselves and say, either I want to go towards this, like you went towards opening your own business, I want to avoid this, or it's time for me to leave. And you happen to be at the right place.
I really do think that everything happens in and unfolds in its own time. In due time, it will come for you. And there is no reason to rush things. You know, I
Right,
mean, think about it. My intention back when I was 20 something years old was to do exactly what I'm doing right now. I can't believe it. I wake up in the morning
wow.
and I thought, wow, what was I thinking back then? I was prolific, but it's just, I just can't believe that I actually get paid to do this, to do this work. It's just unbelievable. And in my work, you know, I make it very clear to people, my job is to make sure that you don't need to see me anymore. I talk to
Yeah,
clients about this all the time. I said it's really self-defeating. It's a termination. We need to get to the point where you don't need to pay me money anymore, right? And so let's hurry this along and let's dive in and do the work. So I'm very direct with my clients. That's how I am. I have to like tell them, you know, I'm going to
right.
call for how I see it, because you can do better and your relationship is worth it. Mhm.
So also, did you, because we as a people, we as Black people, typically therapy is no, no, no one talks about it. You go to church. So, did you find that people were ready, or were they coming to see you and a little hesitant and a little push and pull? Or were they like, you know what, I've had enough time to look at myself. I need help.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I find that it's a generational gap. Some of the younger clients that I work
Hmm.
with, they're just like, I need a therapist right now. They talk to their friends. Oh, hold on, I gotta meet with my therapist. Oh, I gotta meet with my therapist. It's almost like
That's a
there's
good
a
thing.
stigma attached. It's a badge of honor to meet with their therapist. So I think that some of the generational thing is happening with the view of I need help as a strength. Now, I will say that for a lot of the 40 plus individuals, uh, you know, that sort of generation, they are a little hesitant to come in. And
Hmm.
because of that, I think they come in when it's too late. They
Mm.
come in after struggling for decades in their marriage, struggling for decades with anxiety and depression. And now they're starting to think, aha, maybe I need to come in and talk to someone to help me process all of these things happening to me. And, you know, my question, I'm just looking at histories of all of these trust violations and um, just some of the things that people do to each other when they're in a relationship with each other, and they kind of dealt with a lot of
Yeah,
these on their own, and they lived a way
yeah,
that was unfulfilling. And you know, with a couple of sessions, 8 or 10 sessions, we cleared the air with a lot of things that could have been nipped in the bud had they come in a lot earlier. So I think 40 plus us, in the 40 plus, we can learn a lot from the younger generation about removing the stigma of saying that I need help. And I am seeing that happen a lot. So I'm happy to say that.
well, I have to say, not with you, but I remember back, um, really before this trend of, oh, I'm going to a therapist, I went to one during my divorce.
Mhm.
And, now a lot of my friends were European and it was common to them. But for me, it wasn't, but I found it so helpful. So what is your gratitude, or what is the gratitude you get when you see your clients are like, "Ah, okay, you're right. I am ready to go. You've helped me get through this." So how do you feel? What is your release for them, to them?
Termination is beautiful. And I'm always very grateful that anybody would trust me enough to share with me things that they haven't shared with anybody else. And it speaks to, maybe something in me that helps to establish an atmosphere where they feel comfortable and non-judgmental, of course, about what they're going through. Everybody needs somebody that they can process all of these things with. And I think in our community, we used to have Big Mama. I used to talk about how Big Mama would be the one that would sit and listen and had all the secrets. And Big Mama would kind of patch you up and tell you it's going to be okay and give you
Yeah,
little, anecdotes here and there and lessons learned. And what I'm finding is that especially a lot of young people, they don't have like that person in their family that they could go to for everything. I think that part is somewhat missing now. And so I feel kind of like the Big Mama of our community. And but I think it's what's good about it is that I'm trained. I'm trained.
right. I was gonna say that Big Mama wasn't trained,
Wasn't
but
trained.
yeah,
And actually, I encourage a lot of the youth to find a Big Mama, find somebody, because I don't want them to rely on me for the rest of their life. I want to give them the courage where they can have these in their natural environment. So I do spend a lot of time on establishing with all of my clients a positive support system, a system in place for them to cope and to deal
right,
with things. Because believe it or not, no life is problem free. Even the happiest people and the most satisfied people, you're always going to have problems. You're always going to have situations you need to deal with. There's always going to be some sort of angst or some sort of issue.
right,
You need to have a system in place in order for you to just process the stressors in our life. They're never ever going to go away. You need to be able to manage it.
right, right. So I just want to mention one more time. My name is Madonna Brown. You're watching Fly Nubian Money. Please be sure to sign up for flynubianmoney.com if you would like to build wealth for your family. So the first month is free, folks. That's pretty special. And I am here with my guest, Dr. Alicia Watkins. And you can follow her on social media on Linktree, Dr. Alicia, and on Instagram. I was going to say IG, but let me say Instagram. And that is Coach. Again, on Instagram, you're a coach,
Coaching with Dr. Alicia.
coaching with
No,
Dr.
no
Alicia.
bots in there. There's a lot of fake pages. The fake pages got more followers than I do. So fake pages are killing it. My fake page is killing it sometimes, but yeah.
Oh, so I have a question. Back to
Mhm.
your drama-free lifestyle workbook. I'm seeing that you also work with families, how to bring families together who one, couple or sometimes both, they have children. And so you have to kind of get the family together. So how does that workbook, how does that work for you to get the family to come together? Because sometimes it's not seamless.
It's not seamless. And when I talk about things that you can't solve, but you need to manage,
Right.
that's the area where I'm finding that a lot of people in our community in particular, we don't have traditional family structures. A lot of times we have um, children, we have different households that we need to manage. We have the custodial parent, the non-custodial parent, in-laws. We have all of these different people who can come together for the betterment of children, right? So the children we raise in our community, they need to know that the adults in their life are happy and is possible,
Right.
are able to work together and work through issues and conflict in order to build an environment that is loving and nurturing. And we know that that's the type of environment, regardless of family structure, that's the type of environment that has the biggest impact on our community, is making sure that
Yes.
children are raised in a place where they feel valued, they feel important, they feel loved. And a lot of that has to deal with the adults in their life being an adult,
Mm,
putting their differences aside and working for the betterment of the child. So that's the purpose of the drama-free family, is looking at how in-laws, the ex-partner, the bio partner and the bio mom and dad can work together so that all of us can have rules of engagement, a clear
mm,
understanding of what are we going to do. And the interest, of course, is making this experience not embarrassing for the child, not something traumatic for the child, but to make sure they're growing up in a place that's loving. And, children want to see their parents happy. They want to see their parents get along, and they shouldn't have to worry about us. They should know that we're okay and they're okay. And even if we're not okay, it doesn't have anything to do with them, because
right.
kids internalize it. They think there's something wrong with them. And so that workbook is built for the betterment of the entire family, because I do think traditionally in the Black family, we rely heavily on not only just your immediate family, but extended family is important for us. And so that's where we all can work together. And I think it can be a beautiful situation for families to kind of manage. So that was the purpose of that workbook. I taught that class. So the workbook is a standalone workbook, but you can also enroll in the class. I taught that class with Dr. Boyce. We talked together.
I was just about to ask you about that, but please finish
Yeah,
and
he
then
talks
I'll.
a lot about parental alienation, and I think on some level it is intentional, but on other levels it could be unconscious. Some of the anger that you have toward the ex-partner can unintentionally, I won't say that people do it on purpose, but your comments that you make, how you approach, your ex-partner has an impact on how the child sees their mom, or how the child sees their father. And, think about what they hear, and you need to be cognizant of that, because if there's something wrong with my dad, I'm half of my dad, so there's something wrong with me. If there's something wrong with my
Mm,
mother, I'm half of my mother, so then there must be something wrong with me. And that's not the type of message we want to send to our children, especially if we love them and want them to grow up and be happy and successful and confident and have a good sense of self-worth, which says a lot about their future. So yeah, so that's the purpose of that class. And it was beautiful teaching that class with Dr. Boyce. I'm always looking for ways for us to work together. I just enjoy working with him. He's just an interesting person, very unique, brilliant
right.
person to work,
Right.
and he knows way more about business than I do. So I lean on him a lot. And it's just so funny, because after asking him all these questions about, well, what do I do with this? And how do I do this? And he's just like, you're talking to me too much about business. So he got me set up with a business coach, someone that could
Mm,
help me on the kind of the other end of things. Hey,
right.
start my business, and what do I do, and who do I go to for taxes? Okay, now I made all this money. What do I do? How do I keep track of all of this spending? It was really like that first year was just like a whirlwind in terms of me. I had a learning curve in terms of business, took 0 business courses, know absolutely nothing about the business side of anything. So that part was a little tricky for me. But I just kind of just pulled up my sleeves and kind of was just like, okay, what don't I know, and what don't I know that I don't know? It was always, you're always surprised by things. And so it was really nice to get that kind of support.
You know what I love hearing? I love that you're saying that even when you had questions on where to go, you were always willing to find out where to go, so you could get there. I love that. I love that you don't seem like, okay, well, I know it all and that's it. So that is so heartwarming to hear, you know? So
Oh,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I had go with your next question.
So, with your drama-free marriage course, and then I want to ask you about the Black Love and Family Bundle Pack. So, first, the drama-free marriage course. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then about your Black love, and family bundle pack. I love that name, and can you just explain it?
Yeah, so the drama-free marriage that came about, of course, after meeting with a lot of my clients. I talk with a lot of people who got married, and after they get married, they get swooped up into the whole love thing, and they have their wedding, and all of this is wonderful. And then once they got married, it was just like, okay, now what do we do? How do we plan our finances? Do we want to have children? So I'm finding that it was the cart
Mm,
before the horse. And I
right.
early on when you're dating, before you even get engaged, you should have conversations with each other about values and expectations about the marriage, because the wedding is just a wonderful investment. It's a great thing to celebrate love, but afterwards there's just big letdown because things are assumed, things aren't explicitly talked about and planned. And so that's why I came up with that course about the drama-free marriage. It is for people who are getting married or thinking about getting married, who may have already been married, but they're just like, oh, we didn't think about these things. It lays out a foundation of all the things that you need to think about in order to run a household, not only run a marriage, and to adjust with each other. How do you deal with in-laws? How do you deal with vacations? How many children do you want? Do you even want children? Right? How are you
Right, right.
work life, family life balance? What are your goals and aspirations? All of these conversations that should be had before you get married. It was just a way for me to package all of that in a workbook where you can sit down with your partner and actually come up with a very great plan going forward, so that you can be calm. What it will do, it will kind of put you in a position where you're not having arguments and disagreements afterwards because you made assumptions about what you think things should be, and not necessarily
Right.
taking consideration what your partner thinks things should be. It's having you sit down and have these difficult and uncomfortable conversations beforehand so that you can get married and enjoy your marriage. So that was the part
Yeah.
of that. You also talked about the bundle. Um, so the bundle is, there are 3 courses that I taught. I think if I remember it correctly. The other course is about drama-free communication. And the drama-free communication is basically a response to the number one reason why couples come to my office. Every time I look at their intake form, it's always like, we're having a problem communicating. We don't communicate.
Mm,
He doesn't listen to me. She doesn't listen to me. I don't know what they're talking about. I can't get on the same page. Everything blows up in my face. And so these conversations that you're having, it's conflict, which is
mm,
inevitable. Conflict is inevitable. Even healthy relationships have conflict.
mm-hmm.
What separates healthy relationships from unhealthy relationship is being able to have the conversations to resolve the conflict, right? Because the
Yeah.
purpose of conflict, especially in a marriage and in a relationship, is to get to know each other better, because you have one perspective, your partner has a different perspective. Be curious about them. Talk to them about where they're coming from. So at the other side of it, you can have common ground. You can get to a position of yes and compromise and make a decision, knowing each other better. So it really can bring you closer. Conflict can bring you closer. So that's the purpose of that other piece. The third piece to that bundle is to facilitate and to lay out one by one step on how to have conversations on sticky issues. If you're having a conversation with your partner and you're realizing that it's all falling apart, we can't get to a solution. We're going around and around in circles.
Right.
I'm tired of having the same problem. It's teaching you how to manage these things with each other. So that's the third part. And the bundle includes, if I remember it correctly, I think I am. The bundle includes the drama-free communication, the drama-free marriage, and the drama-free family.
See, I love all of that. So, in wrapping up, what is the pièce de résistance? Is it communication? Is it, what would you say? that it is that the one thing you might want to leave, people with? And can people just get these books, you know, regardless of being in a relationship or not?
Yeah, that's interesting because no matter what, you are in a relationship with someone. It could be people in your family that are important relationships to you,
Hmm.
and you need to have these skills. I think you need to have these skills to be able to understand what is listening, what is good communication.
Yeah.
Even if you are employed, if you're working, you need to be able to understand what someone else is saying, because how you're working on projects, how are these projects and all of these activities that you're involved in that requires you to deal with people who are different from yourself. How
Right.
do you overcome this? Because healthy relationships have conflict, right? So I think that it helps you all around. Even if you're not in a marriage, you know what it's like to be a child in a family. You know what it's like to be an uncle or aunt, or you may be part of this extended family where there's young people in your family that you want to mentor, that you want to help and support their parents. So no matter where you come from, I think it's important just to have these skills. And it's a shame they don't teach these in schools. They don't teach these in regular settings. It's basically you learn what your parents showed you in the household, or the
Right.
people in the household. And oftentimes those are not the best examples, because we saw a lot of things fall apart. We saw a lot of things happen to us that shouldn't have happened to us. We saw a lot of things that should have happened to us that didn't. And so we're
Right.
carrying that with us, all of us, myself included. I'm sure you, Madonna, if I got to
Of
know,
course.
we
I
all,
don't have that golden shield in front of me, so yes.
yeah, we all have things in our childhood. All of us do. We all is. I'm a parent. I know I get it wrong sometimes, and I try my best. But all of us have our own issues and our own baggage, and I think it's never too early and never too late. By the way, never too early to try to dive into that. Now,
Hmm.
you asked about what I would leave people with in terms of relationships. I would say that to create a healthy relationship with the people that are important to you, I think it's important to, number one, figure out who's important to you. Who are the people in your life that's important.
Right.
With
Right.
those people, it's important to be available to them when they need you. It's important to be responsive to them, to be available and to be responsive and to be empathetic. I think that those three criteria, if you focus on those three things, you will have really good, strong connections and bonds with the people around you, because they're going to want to come to you and they're going to reciprocate. I think they'll reciprocate that because you're building this atmosphere of love and respect and honesty and transparency about how you feel. The outside world, they don't need to get that. But the people who are important to you, they need to get that, because that's how you foster and you build these positive relationships. And having a positive relationships in your life, ones that are healthy and not toxic, where you're not
Right.
tearing each other down, where you're building each other up, that has an impact on every area of your life. Your health impact, your mental health, your physical health, for sure. It has to do with how successful you are and whether you believe you can accomplish things. It just helps you all around. So it's always great to keep that in focus and to keep that in mind, because it not only helps the people around you, but it also helps yourself.
Right. And
Mhm.
again, how can people get these books? Again, for those who may be like, I want this.
Yeah. The best way to get a hold of me is to go to my Instagram page, Coaching with Dr. Alicia. You mentioned the link tree. If you click on my link tree, it'll take you to my website and all of the things that I have to offer, the workbooks, the courses that were the workbooks. And also, if you're interested in seeing me For individual work, you can go there and click on the intake form. If you're interested in, if you're struggling or with your marriage or with your relationship, you can go there and fill out the intake form. I will get back to you. It takes me sometimes a few days, but I will get back to you. And also, if you're about to be married and you know that you need to plan for a really good marriage and you need extra help and guidance, you can also reach out to me for that.
And it's important to say that you see people over Zoom, so you don't have any limits.
There are no limits. I think the great thing about the pandemic we want to talk about, it just revolutionized therapy because I was only seeing clients face to face in person. And now I'm now able to see, clients just to click on the Zoom and we're able to make that connection. And I was concerned that the Zoom would sort of create distance, but actually I'm like in that camera focused. Zoom technology all fades away. It's
Right,
like in their living room talking to
right.
them. And I've gotten very, very much accustomed to the Zoom world. And I'm sure who knows what the future will hold in terms of direct therapy, but it works for me now. Yes.
Good. Well, Dr. Alicia, thank you so much. Again, I am Madonna Brown, and you're watching Fly Nubian Money. Please be sure to sign up for flynubianmoney.com if you would like to build wealth for your family. The first month is FREE, it is free. I'm here with Dr. Alicia Watkins, and you can find her on Linktree, Dr. Alicia, and coaching with Dr. Alicia on IG, Instagram. So
Mhm.
thank you so much, Dr. Alicia.
Thank you for interviewing me. I'm so honored that you interviewed me. It was really
Well,
actually.
it's an honor for you to be my first, and I learned so much just listening. So thank
Oh,
you.
awesome.